Welcome to the Christian Contractor Podcast.
Christian Contractor Podcast.
A show created for kingdom-driven Christian contractors that are focused on scaling their business in God's name while positively impacting the world around them. If you're ready to ascend from a contractor to a purpose-driven business owner, we're here to serve you. Here's your host, Brandon Guthrie.
Roofers, make higher, more consistent profit margins without the headache and land more deals. What's up? I'm Brandon Guthrie with Dream Design Labs on the Christian Contractor Podcast, where our mission is to help Christian contractors turn their business into their ministry and scale it in the name of God with biblical principles and righteous marketing so that they can be a light in the darkness. Marketing doesn't have to be hard. You just need the right tools and the right heart to serve. Thanks for tuning in. I'm super excited to have William Campbell of All or Nothing Roofers with me today. William, welcome and thank you for being here.
Nice to be here. Yep. I'm with All or Nothing Roofing. I guess a little bit about me. I grew up in Omaha, Nebraska. I have two amazing parents. I mean, I love them to death. They're obviously play a huge role in pretty much everything. None of them have done anything in roofing. Actually, they're more of real estate and stocks and computer tech and stuff. I kind of fell into this, but they definitely. Obviously, they instilled everything. As far as school goes, I don't actually have a lot of education as far as construction. I started out in this industry like I think a lot of us probably as a sales guy. Didn't know what drip edge was. You know what I mean? This is probably 6 years ago. But just I'm a hustler, so I guess here we are. I'm getting off track, but
yeah, dude. No, that's cool, dude. So you got into this in sales, and obviously your family being in real estate in the background. The real estate and contractors actually work together a lot. I've found that to be really true. So that's cool. So you got into sales, and next thing you know, you're like, shoot, I could do this.
I think once again, I think I have a story probably similar to a lot of us where we, worked for other people and got the short end of the stick on a few occasions, and said, well, I can do every part of this. I've been doing every part of this. Why not take the risk, right? And so here we are.
You had some cojones. You took the leap of faith. Same here. I've been there. Took the leap of faith, and it's like you think you're gonna fly right out of the gate. And for me, I hit the ground. Had to get up off the ground and pick myself up and keep pushing. I don't know if that's how it was for you, but that's how it was for me.
Honestly, I've been very blessed. Like since before I started the company, right? I mean, I did $1.5 million in sales with the previous company. Right? Ah,
nice. Good segue.
Yeah, no, it obviously got cut. So I was like, well, I can do that. I can sell, right? So, and I knew the rest of it at that point. So I was like, okay, I don't need a sales guy to make to make it work, right? Like I can sell myself until I figure that out.
Right.
So that was nice. And then obviously, like I said, having family in real estate doesn't hurt. You definitely get a few connections that way. So
big time.
I won't lie about it. It definitely does. It's really this industry. I think even more than a lot of others, it's who you know, right? It's like networking is huge. It's just door-to-door sales. I mean, in general, gets you all kinds of basically business that you would never have that connection. So,
right.
Yeah.
I hear you, man. Cool, dude. Well, I appreciate you, man. That's huge. You know what you're doing, man. You got into this already doing 1.5 million in sales, and you're like, shoot, let me do this on my own. I think a lot of us are on that similar path, and I think everyone, for the contractors listening in right now, for the Christian contractors listening in right now, I think they can relate. A lot of the people that are, owning their businesses are on a very similar track, and we're also we're also just woven a little differently. I think we have the entrepreneur mindset. We have that that we want to lead, we want to make an impact, we want to grow, we want to do something big. And I think I think God has really placed a vision in our minds, in our hearts, that there's something more. And if it's been placed there by God, then it's going to be seen to fruition. And we might not understand exactly why or what that is exactly, but we just got to trust and it's going to happen. So, dude, that's huge. Okay. So for the Christian contractors listening in right now, we're gonna bring some value to you guys. We're gonna give you guys some aha moments. Okay. So there's Christian contractors here listening right now that are not, they haven't cleared the 7-figure mark. They're at different points. Maybe they're 500K, maybe they're 250,000 K. Uh, they're all over the place, right? And they haven't quite crossed that 7-figure mark. I want to bring some epic value for you guys listening in right now, so that you're going to be able to walk away from this and in the next 12 months be able to take this value and scale past that 7-figure mark. How does that sound? That sounds freaking awesome. So cool. So question number 1 and value point number 1 is going to be, talk to me about knowing your numbers. What does that mean to you?
So I think it's I'm not the only person to believe this. I've gone to quite a few conventions and whatever else. Roofers just don't know their numbers. Like, for some reason, a lot of us just don't know what your actual overhead percentage is. They don't actually track these things and then apply them. You hear so often, the best example is like the what is it, 10-50-50 split, right? You 10 overhead off the top. I don't have a 10% overhead to operate. Like, that's not my percentages. I don't know anyone that operates at 10%.
Right. No.
It's normally 12, 15 and higher.
Yeah.
But we only apply 10 and 10 estimates. We only apply, we take 10% of the, off the top for overhead expense. We're not doing, you know what I mean? That's a huge issue. That's part of why we fail as a business so early.
Right.
Because if you're not covering your operating expenses, I mean, you're the profit you think you're making.
Wow. So for contractors listening in right now, what's a likely scenario? I mean, they're kind of know their numbers. They haven't quite taken the time to really write it all down. They don't take the time every week or every month to recalibrate. Like, what's the situation that someone listening in right now might be going through, and they're like, kind of, I don't really know my numbers. And what would be your advice for fixing that, and what difference could that make?
So for us, I'm sorry, will you ask me again?
Yeah. So basically there's, know your numbers now, right? You
Right.
know your numbers at least better than you probably did when you first got started, or better than some people that are out there that literally have no idea, right? You know your operational expenses to some extent. And so what's your advice to basically someone that doesn't know their numbers?
So for us, we do it
how do you
every
get
quarter
them out of their
now.
seat
So
to do this?
we've had a year, or we've had more than a year, of actual numbers to look at, right? Or someone starting out doesn't have. We didn't have that originally. So for us, part of it has to do with getting away from playing like the insurance game, right? We're insurance restoration mostly, and they almost always demand that we use Xactimate or some other estimating software, right? That they approve of. Well, it's just not accurate, right? Those aren't accurate to your numbers, right? That's an average, it's a median, it's a generalization of the market, but it's not your numbers, right? So it all ties into it. For us, it was getting away from that and using lump sum estimating, basically being able to take our labor, take our material, the true numbers, add our overhead expenses, what we'll need in profit, and then generating our estimates on that, and I mean, standing on it. You know what I mean? It's and standing on it. I think it all ties together, man. And you can't do that without being honest. So we have a lot of times an Xactimate, and this is part of the reason we get away from Xactimate too. There's a lot of fluff, right? Like, I could add paint to vents and the gutters, and I could get, six, seven, 800, maybe $1,000
Mm.
extra in stuff that's not really more or less warranted, right? Like, could it be? Yeah, but like, so you have to be able to prove it. You know what I mean? But when you
Mm.
can prove it, you can stand on it, and
Mm.
you can really push for
Mm.
it.
Right, right. Which is point number two, and question number two is like, about how does honesty play a role in all of this?
Yeah, that's really what it is. If they can pick even if you were to use Xactimate in line items, right, and actually do it that way, if they can go out to the like, not that they're going to, but if they're going to go out to the property and pick your stuff apart, right, and you're doing, you know, a decent amount of work throughout the year, they're good. Like, these guys aren't they're pretty smart. They might be frustrating to deal
Mm.
with, like, insurance and things like that,
Right.
but they're not. They're smart, right? They know
Mm.
what they're doing. So you have to be able to prove it. If they can pick your estimate apart and say, no, I see this all the time, this is fluff, this is
Mm.
not warranted, they're going to just immediately shut you down because, well, I don't trust
Mm.
this guy, right?
Right.
Essentially, that's what it comes down to, is do I trust, and what they're allowed to do, right? They have to operate within their uh,
That's
guidelines or whatever. But that's
dude, nice. Wow. So yeah. So for roofers that that work with insurance companies, it's funny. That's like that's a very biblical principle, is honesty, right? Just truth. It's pretty straightforward, right? And I'm sure a lot of us are are tempted to fudge some numbers, but bite the bullet, bite your tongue, and stand on being honest. And in the long run, it's gonna pay off. Like, someone's gonna appreciate that. Maybe
well,
not every insurance
and
person is going
it
to,
it
but
has
someone
knowing
will.
your numbers, man. Because if you can prove it, right? Even with insurance, with homeowners, sometimes homeowners retail, they just want the cheapest bid, right? Well, whatever. With insurance, right? If you can prove it, you can get paid, right? So if you
Hmm.
know your numbers, and like I said, we do it quarterly. We do it every quarter now. But I'll even go as far as, like, you're not going to pay 17% overhead. I think you are. Here's my actual overhead,
Hmm.
and then, oh,
Wow.
well, okay, this is the contractor the homeowner chose. The work is done, the cost is incurred. It is what it is. And they have to
Wow.
cut the checks. Granted, you
Nice.
have to be within reason. Like I said, you have to be honest. You can't go,
Real
hey, I'm putting on your
honesty.
overhead expenses, you know, things
Right.
like that. But yeah.
Okay. Okay. So, a question that pops up in my head is, so you're being honest. I mean, obviously, uh, you could, is just being honest the only thing you need to do? Is like, well, these are our costs, these are et cetera, et cetera. Like, how do you work in your margins, and how do you make sure those margins are healthy? They're not like, because I'm sure you'll be tempted. Oh, I'm going to be honest. So, well, this margin, I could pay myself less, and then I could, charge less, and that's considered honest. Like,
Honest doesn't mean honest doesn't mean back down, right? That doesn't mean you have to be, like, weak business wise, right? You can be like, hey,
mm,
listen, these are my real numbers, and this is what I have to maintain. I'm going to be in business 10 years from now, right? Unlike 90% of contractors, I'm going to be in business 10 years from now. So, you know, you can pay me. It's
amen. Woo, dude. So that, and boom. So question number three is, talk to me about never backing down.
so I say never back down, because that's really the mentality, right, that you have to have. Now, obviously, from a business standpoint, if they say, hey, man, I'm going to pay you within $1,000 of your estimate, probably gonna let it go, right? Because it doesn't make sense for me to go to appraisal, or to, what I mean, drag it out another 60 to 90 days over $900. Right? That
Mm,
doesn't.
mm-hmm.
That would be crazy. Um,
Right,
but
right.
don't
Yeah,
approach it with that mentality, right? You don't get there. You don't get there.
right,
And when I speak, I am speaking mostly on insurance restoration, like I said. So, uh,
right,
but
right.
yeah,
Which there's a lot of people doing that, and a lot of people have questions about that. So that's
right,
perfect.
right, and but that's really what it comes down to. And I have the same. I mean, I have a discussion with a lot. a lot of my project managers, because it just doesn't, some of it doesn't come natural, right? Like there's some that are overly aggressive. And you're like, hey, like chill out, man. Like you got to be respectful, right? Like at the same time. But then there's others who is like the adjuster says something and they're like, okay, like sounds good, and you're like, no, that's not good at all. Like no, like just or whatever the case may be, like you have to approach it like, hey, I'm going to be respectful and be professional, but understand that like I'm not coming off my price, right?
Yeah.
And then so I know that we mentioned less headache, right? At first there's more headache. Okay. First there is more headache, and that is simply because the adjuster doesn't see it all the time, right? They're
Yeah.
used to,
Let's talk about the flip side of this,
right?
right?
They're used to seeing an exactament with 50 line items for the roof, right? Instead of seeing roof X amount of dollars, and then do a brief summary, right? Because that's what we do, right? It'll be like the type of the product we use, the amount of squares, and then a price, right? And then we have a brief summary of the work that we're going to be doing, like remove and replace all accessories, pipe boots, valleys, etc., that kind of thing. So there are line items, kind of, but without the pricing, right? So they don't get to break down and nitpick every single thing and say, oh, you're 50 cents higher on this, we're $1 short there. Your overhead and expenses broken out here. No other industry operates that way. So why should we? Right?
Right. Wow.
But yeah.